Hi everyone! Jim Henson needs no introduction. He was a hugely creative and influential individual who changed the world of puppetry forever. He is responsible for many successful shows including The Muppet Show, Fraggle Rock, The Storyteller, Sam and Friends, and The Jim Henson Hour. His Muppet characters were also used in the long-running children's television show Sesame Street. During his brief life, he had an incredible success rate with his films and television shows, with even his so-called flop films like The Dark Crystal gaining a hugely popular following years later. But one show during Jim's lifetime went absolutely nowhere. A creative concept, a unique cast, but it just didn't have the magic of Jim's other projects to catch the eye of any distributors. That show was Puppet Man. The CBS Summer Playhouse was an anthology program that ran pilot episodes of television shows that hadn't been picked up. There were 3 seasons in total and 46 episodes. Jim Henson's latest idea, Puppet Man, which was filmed in April 1987, met its fate in the pilot graveyard of CBS Playhouse. And that was it. For over 20 years, only 2 copies of the pilot remained, one in Syracuse University's E. S. Bird Library, and one at the Paley Center of Media, a forgotten piece of the Henson Empire. On February 24, 2011, the Jim Henson Company official YouTube channel uploaded the theme song of the pilot. I had previously read about this pilot existing on the Muppet Wiki, but I assumed I would have to make the trip to New York to watch one of the 2 available copies, and I was ecstatic to find that the theme song had been uploaded, and hoped that soon the full episode would emerge. And it did. 3 years later. Puppet Man was filmed in one day, April 17, 1987. Jim Henson was indeed present, as photo evidence exists. The episode itself is very cute, but it definitely represents the time it was written. However, there is one very important element the show has that differentiates it from other Henson productions.
Richard Hunt. He plays Scooter, a royal pain who tries to please everyone.
The 6 major Henson Muppeteers from the 70s and 80s included Jim Henson, Frank Oz, Dave Goelz, Jerry Nelson, Steve Whitmire, and Richard Hunt. Sometimes these individuals would make cameos in the shows or films by the Henson Company, but none of them played major roles in anything apart from Jim in the Jim Henson Hour and Timepiece. Richard Hunt began working with the Muppets in 1970. He notably played characters such as Beaker, Scooter, Sweetums, Junior Gorg, and Janice. He appeared in films such as Trading Places and Oxford Blues.
Wilson, where are you going? You idiot! Get back in there at once and sell! Sell! But
He was known for being energetic and always in a great mood, and he loved his job. I was always fascinated with Richard by watching only a few clips of him at work and also being able to talk to people who worked alongside him. He was rebellious, fun, and a hard worker. I am especially glad that the pilot to Puppet Man exists, as it keeps Richard alive through the power of film. The other lead actor in Puppet Man is well-known voice actor Fred Newman. He has worked on multiple productions with the Muppets, including the mid-2000s television series Between the Lions, from which he won 2 Daytime Emmys. The show also features comedian and Muppet Show writer Jack Burns, Lisa Waltz, who I know as Miss Gilbert from Pet Sematary 2, and comedic actress and voice actor Julie Payne. The show opens on the filming of a puppet series called Dragon Time that airs on WGRF-TV in Madison, Wisconsin. Gary, played by Fred Newman, is the lead puppeteer. He performs multiple characters including Butane, Candle, and the full-body puppet Clyde. His puppetry partner, Del, played by Richard Hunt, performs the puppets Gertha and Earl, and their female puppeteer Holly, played by Lisa Waltz, performs as Cinders and Desiree. Everything on the show is running smoothly until the live actor Rita, played by Julie Payne, emerges, adding in her own song without letting the producers know, and feuds with Del when the puppet he is controlling blows smoke in her face. The director, Bud, played by Jack Burns, is having an affair with Rita and will do anything to make her happy, even if that means firing Del. He tries to convince Gary to do it, but Gary will leave if Del leaves. Gary goes backstage, where he tries to talk to Del about bothering Rita.
What do you want to talk to him about?
About Rita.
Oh, he doesn't want to talk about her.
I do. Del, I'm not fooling around. I've got to talk to you about Rita.
Oh, I don't want to talk about her. See, I told you so.
I'm serious. You really got to try with her, okay?
But Gary, I do try. He tries. Oh, he tries. Oh.
Gary then receives a call from his ex-wife that she's auditioning for a show in New York, and Gary will have to watch over their son Zach, played by Michael Carter, starting the next day. Zach shows up as soon as the show finds out their ratings are dropping because of a beauty pageant happening at the same time slot on another channel. Gary neglects doing anything with Zach so he can work on improving the show, and sends him to go to the farm with their floor manager and son of the director, Little Bud.
Hey, Zach, dude! You ready to rock and roll?
Okay.
Yeah.
You want something to eat there? Waffles?
Waffle? No, I'm a pancake guy. You ready?
Hey, Zach, now Little Bud's in charge of you today, so I want you to listen to him, okay? Hey, have a good time. Whoa. Did you forget something? Huh? Don't I get a goodbye hug?
Whilst rehearsing the next episode, with Rita dressed in a very sultry dress to compete with the beauty contest, Del begins to insult her and she quits on the spot and storms off. Then, Little Bud brings Zach into the studio and tells Gary that he has stomach pains. Gary, who is dressed in a full-body dragon costume, assumes the worst and brings Zach to the hospital. He has to miss the live broadcast of Dragon Time, so he turns on the TV in the hospital lobby to watch it. What he finds is Del, as Gertha, and Rita singing a duet together. They have put their differences aside to make sure the show runs smoothly.
Sunshine away.
You are my sun.
Oh, you are my sunshine.
My only sun.
My only sunshine.
You make me happy.
So
When skies are gray.
When skies are gray.
You'll never know, dear, how much I love
how
you.
much I love you.
Please don't take my sunshine away.
Zach ends up being fine. Turns out he just ate too much ice cream, so he and Gary make it back in time for the closing of the show. Gary soon finds out that his ex-wife got a permanent job with a touring company and has asked Gary to keep Zach. Gary breaks the news to Zach through his puppets, who have an easier time talking to Zach than he does, and they tell him that his dad loves him and would love for him to live with him. Zach agrees.
What do you say, Zach? You want to come here and live with me?
More than anything.
The next day, everyone finds out that Dragon Time won in the ratings by default, as the other show was cancelled because one of the beauty pageant ladies was actually a man. This joke hasn't aged well, but it is a product of its time. And that's it. The show ends. There's no more Puppet Man. Jim Henson came up with the concept of the show in 1986, but it was then completely reworked into something far off from how it started. Thankfully, thanks to Jim Henson's Red Book, we are able to understand the original idea that Jim had for the show. The show is set in Providence, Rhode Island, with a young puppeteer appearing with his characters on a local live afternoon magazine show, much like the one Jim started on in Washington in 1955. The potential stories Jim described centered on the human interactions, flirtations between performers, directors, and programming executives, competition for screen time, and humorous exchanges with celebrity guests. Along the way, viewers would get to watch some wonderful puppet segments from backstage, not only seeing the ingenious way that it is being done, but also seeing the interaction of the puppeteers, which might be just the opposite of the puppets they are performing. So this show was really meant to be a bit more autobiographical. and more behind the scenes of how the show is created. But it became just a normal, essentially uninteresting failed pilot. I think it needs to come back and try again with Jim's original concept more intact. The show also came out a year after Labyrinth, which was a box office bomb in the United States. Maybe no one wanted to gamble with the show. It definitely had more adult themes than the usual Muppets did. Jim was definitely in a period of trying new things, but this was one that just didn't make it. This piece of obscure media does mark one of Richard Hunt's final performances. He passed away in January 1992 at the age of 40 from AIDS-related complications. An amazing individual who was taken too soon. His characters were divided amongst the other living Muppeteers, and the Muppet Christmas Carol was dedicated to both his and of Jim Henson's memory. And there is Puppet Man, a show that revealed a glimpse of someone we barely saw, but whose voice has always been a huge part of our lives. I hope this video will shed some interest in this pilot episode, as after 9 years, it still barely has any views on YouTube. It serves as a small piece of history, to watch one of the greatest puppeteers of the 20th century working. Until it gains the cult following I think it deserves, this will remain a sad, lonely piece of obscure puppet media. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.
It was a great show. You were all terrific.
Yes, I was good, wasn't I? And Del, you were pretty good too.
Thanks, Rita. So were you.
Night all.
So were you? What did you expect me to say? You two-faced worm. Come on, Bertha. Come on, you set.